Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. I updated OBS on the computer I record Switch games on, and I actually haven't done that on either that computer or my personal one. So if anything's like a little off in terms of like audio or visuals or whatever is suddenly like a bit different, that's why. Even like the UI of it changed since I hadn't updated it like ever. I was like, oh, okay, I have to remember where everything is and stuff. Anyway, I normally don't talk about shows in here. This is a show I was kind of watching for a while. I think I only kind of knew about it because I remember it getting, with like the Oscars for the animated stuff, that kind, or not Oscars. No, this is TV, so it would be like Emmys, Golden Globes, whatever. It's one of those. I remember the show getting like a lot of awards, and I thought, oh, it's about like robots and stuff. Cool, because I always like stories with fictional robots. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And then I found out it was like actually just like little shorts, basically, with the longest ones being like about 17 minutes or so. And they're all just like individual stories, except for the one that's about the three robots. That one got a sequel, which is pretty nice. I'm glad out of all of them that got a sequel, because that one I feel like had the potential to be like a TV series in a way of like just the continuing adventures of these three little robots. Anyway, I didn't watch the whole show. I only watched ones that I thought might seem interesting or the art style looked cool and stuff, so I haven't seen everything, so I can't judge it based off the whole show. This isn't really like a review video or anything, this is just me wanting to talk about some of the episodes that were my favorite that I really enjoyed. So that's gonna be pretty much it, and some of these, they stuck with me, where I still remember them. But a lot of these I haven't really watched, and I watch the show like every couple of months. There's going to be probably a lot of details about things that I forget. And then there's like a couple of episodes I watched today, and I was kind of just bouncing around between seasons, so some of these descriptions I'm going to give are my opinions on some episodes. I might either like get wrong or not be as in-depth as some of the other ones I talk about. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of hopefully briefly talk about the show for a bit. I don't know if I'll talk about more shows in the future, just kind of depends. This one's sort of nice because every episode is kind of individual except for the one that got a sequel, so it's not like I really have to talk about like every season of a show. It's just I can talk about whichever episodes I want. Okay, so since I mentioned the three robots one, I thought I'd start off with that because that gets an episode in like the first season and then later in like the fourth season or something. I like the three robots. I think they have interesting designs where like one of them is more kind of this like cutesy looking one that I think is the one that like curses quite a bit, and there's one that kind of reminds me of older robot designs from like the 50s and 60s and stuff, and then there's another one that I think is just like a kind of looks more like futuristic, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute since I watched those episodes. But the robots are funny. I like watching how they make fun of humanity because they basically just wander around in an Earth where humans are dead, but all of the stuff that's been made is like left behind. And I always find those stories really interesting where it's kind of the adventures of like people exploring Earth, but like with all of the buildings and everything still there. It's not like a wasteland or anything. Like Kirby's kind of taken that direction a bit. Or usually I find those kind of stories where it's like robot main characters, like Nier Automata is also kind of the same way. I just think that makes for like really fun environments to explore and to hear the perspective of like characters that haven't potentially even met humans, that are seeing all the things that were left behind and commenting on them and stuff. I think it's entertaining. And I remember, I think with the sequel to the Three Robots episode, where it turns out that like cats survived. I don't remember if they caused like the downfall of humanity or something, but there's cats, and I think they like talk or whatever, and they're like left behind. But those episodes are really fun, and I was kind of having that kind of just on the brain today because there's another episode I watched. I think it's called The Large One, where it's about this cat that can talk, and the owners of the cat buy this robot as like a little robot servant, and the humans and the cat actually like they can't understand each other, and whenever it switches perspective, the other individual is just speaking like gibberish or something, or the cat's just making meowing noises and the humans just speaking like weird gibberish. I feel bad for the cat that it doesn't really get fed, its owners are ignoring it, and the owners actually treat the robot the same way, so the robot doesn't actually mind being the cat's like servant and stuff because it's like the only one that's like nice to it. But then the cat uses the robot to take over the world, and I think a bunch of other robots. So I was wondering if it was like the prequel to like Three Robots in a way of like, this is what starts it, if like the cat kills off humanity. I mean, in Three Robots they talk about like humans dooming themselves basically by being too greedy or not being kind enough to others to like help each other or to do anything that would save the planet. But the fact that cats were still alive at the end of that one made me think like, maybe these are connected in some way. Speaking of robot servants and stuff, there's one that I watched today that's called something along the lines of like Smart Appliances, Stupid Owners. I thought that was really fun. I like that it's in stop motion and the design of the appliances are kind of cartoony where they're not literally given like mouths or anything, but the parts of their bodies of the appliances, and it'll be like thermostats, toilets and stuff move as if it's a mouth, and they have little like cartoon eyes. It reminds me of I think it's called Creature Habits. The company that makes like Wallace and Gromit have these little shorts where it's like interviews of people, like actual people that are synced to like animals, but the animals match like the kind of personality of the people, and those are fun to watch. But it kind of gave me the same vibe of that, of like an interview type thing, but through like non-human eyes, where the owners like call out their humans on stuff. Like the toothbrush was really funny because it like curses kind of, and how the owner doesn't use it correctly. And I liked the part where the toilet says what kind of person would give a toilet intelligence, and then the next person that gets interviewed is a cat litter box, and was saying like, oh, the toilet thinks he has it bad, that's adorable. And then the cat shows up and the what is it called, the cat litter box has to open its mouth, and the cat basically like shits in its mouth. So yeah, I think that's like a little worse than the toilet. But that episode was funny. I think those were kind of the episodes I'm going to say that I was kind of drawn to were the ones where it was more of like, because these are all sort of like sci-fi in some way. They're not all about like robots though. The ones that were either like a person, like a human main character has to either, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to think of some of the ones that I have written down and what I feel like they have in common, of like kind of exploring the unknown in a sense. Those I liked, and I think you'll kind of see what I mean with that as I'm talking about some of these. Or the ones where they were just kind of funny, like the Smart Appliances one. I think those were the ones I was more interested in. Like, my two favorite episodes are Zima Blue and Pulse in the Machine. I'm going to talk about Pulse in the Machine first because I like literally just watched that before I started making this. So that one is this guilty dying woman's acid trip on an alien planet as she tries to survive, where the visuals get kind of more and more crazy the more high she's getting. She's only getting high because it's like pain meds that are having all these weird side effects, and the whole reason she's in that mess in the first place is she's with the main character's name is Martha, and she's with her companion Burton, and Burton's trying to warn Martha of like, hey, we shouldn't go into this area, it might not be safe or whatever, and Martha's like, no, it's fine. And then they end up in this crash, and Burton ends up dead, and Martha has like a limited amount of oxygen and has to try and get off the planet, and she has to drag around Burton's corpse. And it's this whole thing where Martha's taking these meds which are having these like side effects that she knows about. She's aware of the side effects but takes it anyway. She literally says something of like, oh, well, if I don't get out of here, better to die high. And then it has this thing where, like, Burton's corpse starts talking to her. And then and the visuals start getting funky from there, so you think, like, oh, okay, it's part of the medication and stuff. She's, like, hallucinating all of this, because that's one of the symptoms. But then it's this thing where, like, it turns out the planet is a machine and the planet is like talking through Burton. And then the visuals get even like more crazy from there. And Martha, and I'm summing it up, but I'm going to go into more detail. And then Martha realizes she is going to like die on this planet and kind of becomes one with the machine of like throwing herself into the void kind of a thing. But visually, this was one of the really cool ones. I mean, they all are. Let me just start off with saying all of these are, there's so many different art styles in this, and a lot of them are just, in my opinion, like so cool. Some that I like more than others. But I'm sure it's made by some like really talented people. But this one, I like the sort of horror of it in a sense, where like you don't really know. I feel like it could be debatable if like it's really just the medication that's affecting Martha, especially once the machine is revealed and being sentient and you keep seeing all the lights and stuff. But just the idea of like a person you know and care about has like died, but then you're still hearing their voice even after they die, where it could be some kind of non-human entity that's trying to like speak to you through your friend, I think is kind of an interesting concept, where the voice is just yapping to Martha about like poetry and other stuff, but it's the machine talking through Burton, and Burton's voice sounds the same as like when she was alive. There's just kind of like a robotic quality to it, not like monotone, but just it's like an added effect on there. But it's just the machine through Burton like trying to communicate, and then it's revealed that the machine is getting into Burton's brain and is able to see like her memories and other stuff. It's pretty crazy, honestly. But I like that the visuals get more funky, like the rocks start morphing into like women and stuff, like the shape of women, and eventually morph into like Burton. And then everything kind of almost becomes like an ocean where there's like grass, there's like crystals at one point. The visuals just look absolutely fantastic. And I like the reveal when Martha finds out that the person she's talking to is actually the machine. She turns on this like setting on her headset, and there's all these like of her helmet, and there's all these like blue lights that are coming around and stuff. It's like all this energy, and it all like goes into this hole in her friend's face because Burton, her helmet's like cracked or something, and is, I think there's like a hole in her face where one of her eyes should be, from the crash, and like all of the energy or whatever from the machine is going in there, and the machine's describing how it can like see through Burton or something. And there's this one shot that I really love where once Martha figures that out, or no, it's more of the machine revealing it to her, and then Burton stands up and her helmet is full of just completely like blue light. You can't even see her face, and she like reaches out towards Martha and picks her up and carries her away, and then Martha wakes up in a different location and Burton's corpse is just completely gone. But the machine's able to like still talk to her at that point even without Burton's corpse there. And then Martha knows like, okay, I'm gonna die here no matter what. And she has the opportunity, if it even works, to like throw her body into the machine, where she'll either live forever, like mentally, like her brain will be intact in a sense, or it's just kind of all a dying dream. And then you hear this message. It was the one part I was a little confused about. We hear this message from Martha after she does that, and we see like a spacecraft approaching. And there was like a delay when Martha was originally trying to send a message to like Earth or whatever of like, hey, we need help, we're stuck here. So I didn't know if it was like they're finally getting her message and it's like too late because Martha had just thrown herself into the planet void, or if she's having a message and they can hear it and it's from Martha like inside of the machine at that point. I don't know, because it's just her saying like who she is, and it kind of just ends there. But yeah, the part, I just keep thinking about it of like Burton's helmet full of that light and reaching out towards Martha, of just this whole thing of like the visual of like an astronaut, but there's like something else in there, you know, I think is really cool. I think part of the reason I liked this one so much is it kind of reminds me of 2001: A Space Odyssey a bit, not just with the machine that like talks to Martha, but it made me think of the book series and stuff, and how eventually like I don't remember if it's in the first or second book, Hal and Dave, they end up merging together at one point, and in the second book, Dave goes, he's like a celestial being now, and he goes to like visit people that he knew in his like human life and stuff. And I kept thinking about that, or just the whole idea of like an astronaut that's alone, that has to like, that ends up on like a planet, or they're in some like dying situation and they're dealing with like forces beyond their understanding and all these things happening and whatever. I just think is like really cool. It kind of almost reminded me of, there's another episode, I think it's called Fish Night or Fish Market or something, where it's these two, I think they're like insurance salesmen or something, they're in the desert, and the younger man, he hallucinates these like fish or like an ocean or something, even though they're in a desert, and it happens at nighttime, and he goes towards the fish, and then it's revealed that he's like dead, and basically him going with the fish because he wasn't trying to like stay alive earlier or something is like him dying or whatever. But that one was really cool. I liked the whole thing of like the fish flying around and stuff. Almost kind of a oasis in the desert type thing where you think like you're kind of saved, but you're actually not. What else? Or the tall grass was another cool one. I wish I remembered that one a bit more clearly. It kind of reminded me of the story Night on the Galactic Railroad, which is about these two boys. I remember there's an animated movie for it where they're cats, but I don't know in the original source material if they're cats. But I remember the movie, it's like this Italian story of like these two cats, and they go on this train. In this episode also is a train, but it's about someone getting off a train. They see these like lights in the grass, and they go towards them. That ends up being like a not very good decision and stuff. I don't think you find out what the lights are or anything, but they kind of just attract people over there and stuff. I gotta rewatch Night of the Galactic Railroad at some point. I feel like that'd be a good one to show my friends. There's one that's called The Witness. That one was kind of confusing to me. The animation for it was great, though. It was kind of a little too fast-paced, though, for me. Of like this woman that's fleeing a killer, and it ends up being this like time loop thing where it turns out like she's the killer, and it like keeps restarting or something, or like she's the person she's running away from or something like that. But it was kind of just cool to watch. There's one that's called The Drowned Giant that I was thinking about for a while. I assumed it was like an analogy of how we treat whales, and it's about these people, or maybe it's supposed to be more of like a reference to just like Gulliver's Island or something, where there's like this town, looks like it could have been like New England or something, and there's a body of a giant who just looks like a human, and then like the tinier people, they also look human. I don't know if any of them are human, but there's like a human corpse, as I'll call it, that ends up like on a beach, and the people don't really know what it is, and no one takes it seriously of like, oh, that's a corpse of a humanoid being. They just kind of play around on it. I remember there's like teens that draw like dicks on it or whatever, except there's like one person, I don't remember if he's like a scientist or not, who's just completely fascinated by the giant's corpse, of wondering, and it was kind of the thoughts I was thinking of too, of like, who is this person, how did they die, how do they end up on this beach, and they get like defaced and taken apart, and eventually I think you see at the end that the giant's body is like sold around town or whatever. Like no one really tries to like study it or anything except at the beginning, and it's just the main character narrating about how the giant's corpse is like slowly decomposing, and at first everyone's super into it, and then everyone just kind of leaves it alone there to like rot and stuff. But that one I really liked. There's another one I watched called Spider Rose, and it's about the cyborg lady, and she's in some kind of incident we see in a flashback where her husband dies, and there's these other people that die, and it like haunts her, and then she finds this like little axolotl creature or something, and she just like desperately needs a friend, and she absolutely loves this little creature, and they have to like take down these like aliens or something, and she even tells the little creature of, I think she names it like Nosy, that it emotionally gives her like a reason to live, but then it had to like eaten her food, and then it has to eat her, and it doesn't want to eat her. I think it just does for like survival or something, and I don't think the woman was going to survive anyway. But they do seem to have a genuine bond, and I thought it was interesting. The main character mentions at one point of like, oh, this creature I guess just evolves to look more like its owners. Like it starts out as this like fleshy looking little axolotl thing, and then it goes inside of this weird cocoon thing, and when it comes out it's like furry, kind of like how people have hair. And then it does that again at the end after it's like eaten the woman, and it like has her haircut or something. And there was these like bigger aliens or whatever that are like from the same, I don't know if they're from the same species. It was kind of confusing to me a little bit. I think there's probably some details with that story I was missing, but it was cool to watch. Visually, it looked like it looked and felt like it was like a video game, like I was watching a bunch of video game cutscenes or something. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway, I want to talk about my favorite one, which I I feel like I should just go rewatch it. I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can like pull it up on YouTube or something actually, and let me just see if I can at least like scroll through a trailer. I kind of want to just look at it again before I start talking about it. Okay, so I found it, Zima Blue, on YouTube. I think it was posted by like the official like Love, Death, and Robots channel. The one thing that was a bit of a bummer, and I don't remember it only being 3 minutes, but I think it was like cut a little bit shorter, was that it didn't have any of the dialogue. It was just music, and that was a bit of a bummer because the entire thing is like narration by this guy named Zima. He invites this woman named Claire to his last final like art exhibit. So the dialogue is actually really important, where it's basically him explaining like his whole life story and everything. And it's actually because Zima is this like reclusive, super famous artist who does these like fantastic gigantic paintings, but he eventually starts adding these like blue squares and adding like more and more of this very specific like blue color and stuff. And then at the end it's like revealed that he's actually basically like a cleaning robot, like a Ramba, but like for whatever the Ramba equivalent of pools is, where he just cleans these like blue tiles of a pool that he becomes like absolutely fascinated with. He never like forgets about them. And then his owner like decides to like keep upgrading him, and he eventually keeps getting upgraded and becoming like more sentient and intelligent and stuff, until he has like a humanoid form. I don't think anyone knows he's like actually a cleaning robot though. And then he decides he's done everything he can with his career, and he's still thinking about like the tiles and stuff, and he takes his body apart. His like final art exhibition is recreating the pool he used to clean, and he kind of just morphs back in a sense to the cleaning robot. Like you literally see his body come apart, and the cleaning robot was inside all along, and then he just goes back to like cleaning the pool, and everyone in the audience is kind of freaked out because from all they knew, he was like this artist, and he basically just like died in front of them. But for him, it's like going back, and I think I don't know if he like loses all his intelligence. I don't remember, and I should probably just hop on Netflix to check the episode, but I'm not going to. But first off, it is one of my favorite art styles in the whole thing. It kind of looks like the same style as the Dance Central trailers, because I used to have that dance game when I was a kid, but it also made me think of like Gorillas. I don't know if it's like the same artist. But yeah, the art's amazing. I mean, I feel like it would have to be for a story that's about an artist, and the story, you know, revolves around color, about these like blue squares and this like very specific shade of blue. But I like this idea of like a robot that becomes sentient and becomes this artist and is like well recognized in like the world of humans and stuff, but then at the end of the day he kind of loses his focus and wants to go back to just cleaning the pool and being around those blue tiles, even if it means he potentially loses like his, you know, his humanoid form and his intelligence that he gained. Like none of that stuff turns out to like matter to him, or the fame or anything. It's just about this blue pool tiles and stuff, and I just found the whole thing really fascinating. Easily my favorite out of the episodes. Then again, I said I hadn't watched them all or anything. I feel like I don't really know what else to say about it, but those were like the big things with it. And I feel like, you know, like I've mentioned, I like fictional robot stories, but I always get fascinated more of like those kinds of like the journey of like a robot becoming more sentient, and its like perspective and stuff of whether it becomes like more human in a sense or not. Or the episode, it kind of made me think of that Robin Williams movie, Bicentennial Man. I feel like it kind of has like a similar vibe, and I always find that stuff really interesting. But yeah, that's all the episodes I wanted to talk about. I didn't think it was going to be like this long, but I am like a little sleepy right now. I almost wasn't going to make this, but then I thought I feel like I'm done with what I wanted to watch with the show, and I was going to probably forget. I already had been of like some of the episodes I watched, but I think it's pretty good. I don't know if there's another season. I'm not going to go back to like watch the episodes I skipped. I think I'm okay, but I'm really glad that I checked it out. I think I'm probably going to look up like some of the artists and animators for a lot of these, because there was so many cool art styles. I know I keep hammering in about the art, and I do care about the storylines and stuff before, and like the range of topics in here where it's not even just all about robots. Sometimes it's just about like people, and it'll range from being like very serious or really dark to being like very like silly. Like, you think there's an entire episode that's just like various ways Hitler could have like died throughout history or something, but it's like presented as a comedy. Or there's a couple of episodes where it's like tiny miniatures. I think they recreate the day the earth stood still. There's like the one with the household appliances, but then there's also really crazy ones where people end up in like completely hopeless situations, or they deal with like horrors beyond their imaginations. It's a scale, honestly. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good show. I think it deserved, I don't know what awards it got. I just kind of vaguely remember that because I used to watch award shows more often. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit, some of the episodes I liked. And that, wait, no, I forgot an episode. Hold on. I I thought I finished. There's one that I forgot. The thing is, I don't know what the name of it is the problem. Don't remind me in the comments. I can like Google it later. But there's this one episode about this guy, and he turns out to be in some kind of hallucination or whatever, or not hallucination, like simulation or something, where he meets this woman, and he has like a crashed spaceship, and he thinks he lands on like another planet, and he, I think, ends up in a relationship with some blonde woman, and then it turns out she's actually some kind of like spider monster, and he's trapped in some kind of unescapable scenario inside of her like web or something. And I wasn't sure if you're supposed to believe her of like these people, she's going to eat them, they're going to die, and she's trying to give them this sort of stasis dream, quote unquote, so they don't know the actual reality they're in, or if it's just like she's trying to lure them into like a false sense of security and then like eat them or whatever. I don't completely remember all the details or the ending of whichever episode that is, but I really liked that one too, and the whole idea of being in this like false reality, and that's supposed to seem like comforting and like you're saved from the crash and like you survived, but in reality your reality is like you're in this hopeless situation, and knowing of like, are you aware you're in that like false reality or not, and even if you knew what the truth was, would you want to go back to being in the simulation, kind of like the Matrix in a kind of a sense. I find that kind of stuff really cool too, but I can't believe I almost forgot about that one. I don't remember what it's called, but that's okay. But yeah, that's all the ones I think I wanted to talk about. I don't know if I'll talk more about TV shows, because I don't usually watch stuff like this that's like just a bunch of like little individual standalone episodes, but that would be cool to see. I'm curious, not just with Netflix, but like if there's other stuff like this. I mean, I know there's like a billion short films and other things on YouTube, and I keep an eye on some stuff like that, but it's the fact that it was like one show technically that was just on like a streaming service that made it really convenient to watch and everything. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.